It is 20 minutes past the hour 4. It's a good time to say good afternoon to you all and welcome to the Great Hall, Accra, where this evening ours is a deliberation, critical thinking on a very provocative theme chosen to reflect the aspiration of our father who is resting in glory, the late Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye. Welcome to the third Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lectures. My name is Gyekye, and I'm humbled to serve as the master of this ceremony. Shortly, we shall be receiving in our midst our host, together with the official party comprising the guest of honor. I kindly ask that we put our phones on silent to avoid any interference in the course of this sweet engagement. Additionally, we have water to keep you hydrated. Any other thing I can do personally to make sure your stay here is warm, comfortable, and safe. My name is Jerry, and I'm yours to command. But while we wait, we shall have some music from the Gyekye troupe. And ladies and gentlemen, in a short while, we shall receive the full complement of the house, and everything will proceed on time, on point, and on message. The restrooms are located to my right and to my left. Please beckon any of the ushers, and they'll be glad to assist. Once again, I thank you all for coming. And now, ladies and gentlemen, humbly I ask that we all rise for the procession. Let us pray. Gracious and almighty God, Father of all wisdom and truth, we gather in your presence this day with grateful hearts as we commence the third Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lecture. We thank you for the life and legacy of Professor Emeritus Kwame Gyekye, a man whose intellect you fashioned, whose pen you guided, and whose love for this nation you kindled. May his memory continue to illuminate the minds of all who seek truth and justice in Ghana. Lord, as we reflect on the theme of prophecy in our contemporary political life, grant us discernment that we may distinguish wisdom from noise, vision from ambition, and genuine counsel from flattery. Give us clarity to those who will speak today and open the hearts among all who listen. May this gathering honor the dead, challenge the living, and serve generations yet to come. In Christ Jesus' name have we prayed with thanksgiving, and all who believe shall say a big amen. We shall take the first offering for this evening. I'm kidding, please sit. Unless you want a prophecy. It's Monday, the 2nd of February 2026, 2 days after the MPP showdown in the primaries. This is what the critical thinker had to say on Facebook. He says, and I quote, "We live in a time when the drumbeat of elections stirs both the prophet and the pollster. When the man of God climbs to the pulpit to declare what the ballot box shall yield, and the scientist sharpens his data to forecast the same, our people say, two rivers may flow differently, but they can meet at the same sea. The question before us today is precisely this: must a river of faith and the river of reason flow in opposition, or can they find their confluence?" Wow. It's on the back of this wonderful thoughts that I, Jerry Ajololo, standing here on behalf of our gracious host, the Vice Chancellor of this prestigious university, Professor Nana Abba Apia Amfo, the Philosophy and Classics Department, in collaboration with the Planning Committee and the family of our late father, that I say a very good afternoon to you, our guest of honor, the Ambassador, the High Commissioner of the Republic of Kenya to Ghana, Your Excellency Shem Amadi, our guest speaker, Dr. Nancy Miles Bafo Jemfi, Your Ladyship, Justice Professor Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, Justice of the Supreme Court of Ghana, the President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Emerita Professor Isabella Kwache, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana and a distinguished fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah, distinguished fellows and members of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, provosts and deans of colleges and schools, faculty, staff, students of the University of Ghana, esteemed guests, and lifelong learners. Welcome to the third Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lecture under the theme Prophecies in Contemporary Ghanaian Politics, Reflections from Kwame Gyekye. I believe this is a very topical and timely theme to reflect on, given the times we're living. I pray that it will afford us the opportunity to reflect, to probe, to question, and to relearn certain things that would improve our society. Here to officially welcome us and introduce our chairperson, I give to you the Provost of the College of Humanities at the University of Ghana. Make welcome Professor Joseph Yarrow.
Thank you very much, Reverend MC. It's a delight to welcome all of you to today's very important lecture. And for those of you who were not here last year and the year before, it has always been a very important, groundbreaking, and illuminating lecture. And we are very proud to have in our midst our Vice Chancellor, important guest, the Ambassador, and our wonderful Chair, Emerita Professor Techua Menu, and of course, our former VCs. And Prof, you are always here, right? Prof Mensa Bonsu is always here. I think the past 3 weeks I've seen you. And our latest Vice Chancellor in town, Professor Bob Wateng, you are, and the rest of you, please, we are so happy that you have made it here to listen to, once again, a very important lecture. At this point, I will take my seat, and Mr. MC, over to you. So I will continue with my next duty, which is to introduce the chair for today's occasion. Our chair is an emerita professor at the University of Ghana, Emerita Professor Techua Menu. She served as Director of the Social Development Policy Division of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa from 2014 to 2017, and Director of the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, 2002 to 2009. She holds an undergraduate and graduate degrees in law from the University of Ghana, Legon, and the University of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and a PhD in anthropology from Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana, USA. Her research, scholarly, and advocacy interests are in African development, women's and minority rights, contemporary African migrations, and African higher education systems, and she has published widely in these areas. She is a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences and the vice president for the arts section, and she has received several awards and recognitions, including the University of Ghana's Meritorious Service Award in 2007, Ghana's Order of the Volta, Office Class 2008, an honorary doctorate degree from the University of Sussex, UK in 2015, the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and the Rule of Law in 2023. She is also a senior fellow at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, Accra, and an honorary professor at the Nelson Mandela University, Port Elizabeth, South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, your chair, Emerita Professor Techua Menu.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so happy there is a seat for me here so I can tower over all of you. Madam Vice Chancellor, former Vice Chancellors, Pro-Vice Chancellors, Provosts, Deans, members of the Gyekye family, the Speaker, the Head of Department of Philosophy and Classics, faculty, staff, students, ladies and gentlemen, and media practitioners. And of course, our special guest of honor, His Excellency, the High Commissioner of Kenya to Ghana. I'm really honored to be able to join you this evening to chair the third Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lecture. I was not going to be able to, but I am glad that I could adjust my time and be with all of you. And I'm honored this evening to chair this important lecture of a distinguished scholar, fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, family person, and a statesman who was also a friend. And I know that he has many friends around the world some of whom have expressed their regret that they are not able to be with us this evening. It is fitting that we honor the memories of people who have achieved things, especially when it comes to knowledge and thought. This morning, somebody shared a post on a platform with me, and they were talking about human dignity and human rights. And they were attributing this to different Abrahamic traditions, to Buddhism, to Kant, and different traditions about the inviolability, equality, autonomy of persons and the contestations around them. So I asked them, where is Kwame Gyekye in this invocation? Have you read about Kwame Gyekye's notion of personhood and the inherent dignity of human beings? So it started a whole discussion about African knowledge, African thought, what we value. And one of the person who had originally sent the post said, among my circle of friends, I don't think there are many who know much about Kwame Gyekye. And I said, how can they know when they are not taught these things? So I am doubly happy that we are here, that we have come to listen to a speaker from the Department of Philosophy and Classics, who will be invoking the thought of Professor Gyekye to treat us to what is surely a very topical issue on prophecies in Ghana. And as we were in the waiting room, I jokingly asked her, so did you invite all the different prophets to come and listen to us? And she said, well, they did invite some. And I said, well, if they were all to come, this room would be full. We wouldn't even have somewhere to sit. So like all of you, I am intrigued about the topic, and I cannot wait to listen to the speaker take us on this exploration on prophecies in contemporary Ghanaian politics, reflections from Kwame Gyekye, which will also let the prophets know that scholarly attention is being paid to these different prophecies and counter-prophecies that assail us almost daily and every week. So I can only thank the Philosophy Department, the Department of Philosophy and Classics once again for doing me the honor of inviting me to chair this function. Thank you very much, and enjoy the lecture.
Emerita Professor Techiwa Menu is to be thanked for accepting to chair today's event. Please, another round of applause. And help me say a big thank you to Professor Joseph Yarrow for that solid introduction. Please, another round of applause. Emerita Prof, the chair, it is now the turn of the Vice Chancellor of this university to formally address us as host. Make welcome Professor Nana Abba Apia Amfo.
Thank you very much, Mr. MC. Madam Chair, I was looking at the program and it said chairman's brief remarks, right? And then addressed by the host. No brief. So you can multiply hers by 2. Madam Chair, Emerita Professor Techiwa Menu, Your Excellency Shemamadi, Kenyan High Commissioner to Ghana, Dr. Nancy Miles Bafo Jemfi, Distinguished Lecturer for the 3rd Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lecture, Provost of the College of Humanities, and I see that there are other provosts who are present here with us this afternoon. Former officials of the University of Ghana, former Vice Chancellor, President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, my president I need to acknowledge here. Deans, directors, heads of departments present, family and friends of Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye, faculty, staff, our dear students, invited guests, good afternoon. It is with great honor and excitement that as Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, I host the 3rd Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lecture, an event that continues to celebrate not only the legacy of a towering philosopher, but also the enduring relevance of African thought in shaping our contemporary world. At the University of Ghana, we are guided by the following core values: integrity, commitment, respect, and loyalty. These values resonate profoundly with the philosophical vision of Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye. His work consistently calls on us to think deeply, to live ethically, and to build societies grounded in reason, communal responsibility, and human dignity. Today's lecture is therefore not merely commemorative. It is a continuation of an intellectual journey he helped to chart. And as our chair mentioned, we need to do everything possible to let this intellectual tradition continue. The theme of today's lecture, Prophecies in Contemporary Ghanaian Politics, Reflections from Kwame Gyekye, invites us into a conversation that is at once familiar and complex. In Ghana, as in many parts of Africa, religion plays a significant role in shaping how people understand events, make decisions, and interpret the world around them. At the same time, we live in an era that increasingly emphasizes data, evidence, and scientific reasoning, especially in matters of governance and public policy. And if we are honest, in moments such as election seasons, these two ways of interpreting events sometimes meet in very interesting ways. One might listen to a political analyst presenting polling data and shortly afterwards hear a confident prophetic declaration about the same outcome. It can make for lively conversations, sometimes even heated debates across homes, campuses, and media platforms. But beyond the humor and everyday observations lies a deeper set of questions that are both philosophical and practical. How do we as a society engage different ways of knowing? How do we ensure that our public discourse remains thoughtful, responsible, and grounded? And how do we navigate these issues in ways that promote both understanding and national development? These are not questions with quick or simple answers. They require careful reflection, openness to dialogue, and a willingness to think critically about our assumptions. This is precisely why gatherings such as this are so important. As a leading institution of higher learning, the University of Ghana sees its role not only as transmitting knowledge, but also as creating spaces for meaningful conversations, spaces where complex issues can be examined with intellectual rigor and mutual respect. We are particularly proud that this conversation is being framed through the intellectual legacy of Kwame Gyekye, whose work reminds us of the richness of African philosophical traditions and their relevance to contemporary challenges. Ghana's continued progress depends in no small measure on the quality of our public reasoning, whether in politics, policy, or everyday life. We must cultivate habits of careful thinking, respectful engagement, and a commitment to truth. This is where the university community has a special responsibility. Our students, scholars, and alumni must be equipped not only with knowledge, but with the intellectual discipline to assess claims, weigh evidence, and contribute constructively to national conversations. As we proceed this afternoon, I encourage all of us to listen attentively, reflect deeply, and engage thoughtfully with the ideas presented. Let us approach the discussion with curiosity and a readiness to learn from one another. Before I take my seat, let me express my sincere appreciation to the Department of Philosophy and Classics, the Gyekye family, members of the planning committee, and all partners who have made this event possible. Your commitment ensures that the intellectual legacy of Emeritus Professor Gyekye continues to inspire generations. I also look forward with great anticipation to the lecture by our distinguished speaker, Dr. Nancy Miles Bafor-Gyemfi, whose reflections I'm confident will challenge, enlighten, and provoke meaningful dialogue. Once again, you are most welcome to the University of Ghana and to the third Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lecture. Thank you.
We're grateful to you, our gracious host, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Nana Abba Apia Amfo. I do recall my days as a student at the university in the philosophy department, where the Venerable Professor Kwame Gyekye taught us African philosophy. One name he constantly mentioned was John Mbiti, the great Kenyan philosopher and writer. It is no mistake that today we have a guest speaker who comes from the Republic of Kenya. Ours today is a decorated military officer who rose to the position of colonel before retiring and eventually was assigned many diplomatic missions outside Kenya, culminating in his now appointment as the High Commissioner of Kenya to Ghana. Would you please, with warmth in your heart, receive as our guest of honor, His Excellency Shem Amadi.
Mine, first and foremost, is to thank all of you most sincerely for being here to join me in this momentous occasion of celebrating the life and memories of our hero and among our forefathers, Professor Kwame Nkrumah. It gives me great pleasure to be here. Firstly, as a Kenyan. Secondly, and most importantly, as a Ghanaian, because our histories are very much intertwined. So it gives me a great pleasure to be here and to be talking about a great man that I know, a great man who lived a full life, who has changed the political, economic, and social landscape of Africa in many ways, and his memories has transformed many African political systems, including Kenya, through his memories and revolutionary ideas that keep us running until today. First and foremost, as I walked in, there was something that I missed as I looked around the audience seated here. I realized that majority of you are young, and I greatly miss the life and the position that you are enjoying today. Because without it, I will not be standing where I am. I do miss what you have, because with the time, I know you'll be standing where I'm standing and doing the things that our great hero, Kwame Nkrumah, aspired and dreamt about and the seed that he has planted amongst all of us. First and foremost, before I was told I have 5 minutes, but you know what 5 minutes is in Africa. So, so I hope that I'll not be penalized, because you don't expect an old man with white hair like me traveling all the way from Kenya to Accra, Ghana, the great seat of African tradition and Pan-Africanism, and you only give me 5 minutes. That would be unfair. So I proceed that first and foremost, how do I find myself to be standing where I am today? It was accidental, because if the accident had not happened, and I would not have been here, and I looked at the situation as a friend, a brother, and a fellow African looking at another fellow African. We were traveling on a flight from Accra to Nairobi. We were in business class, and I entered the aircraft, and I find this young man seated on my chair, the seat that is assigned to me. So I wondered, this gentleman here did he not read the number of the seat properly, because the seats are properly labeled? So the gentleman was seated quite comfortably, pretending to be taking a nap, but he was actually sitting on my chair. So he was ignoring my presence as I entered the flight. So I decided, okay, that being the case, I'll take his seat. So I took his seat, and after a while, he continued pretending to be taking a nap. So after a few minutes, I said, oh, hello, and how are you doing? He said, I'm doing well. I introduced myself, and we introduced one another. And he told me he was Professor Odell from University of Ghana. So, and he was accompanied by Dr. Richard on the same flight. So we introduced ourselves, and we got to talking, and as a result of which, we started exchanging notes and greetings, and that's how come I'm here this afternoon. Because if I had become offensive to a fellow African and a fellow brother, I will not be enjoying this courtesy here and talking to this great audience. So, so what I'm driving at, it's always good to be courteous, and it's always good to exercise the things that we learned from our elders, that what is comfortable for you is also comfortable to the other person who happens to be your brother and seated right next to you. So as a result of that, this friendship has metamorphosed, and here we are getting on, and we have become very great friends. And gradually, the University of Ghana will eventually become a friend of Nairobi University, and there will be many things happening in terms of friendship, collaboration, and so on. So mine is to thank the Vice President for organizing this event here, Vice Chancellor, the Chairperson, professors, and indeed the audience here. Like I say, I really admire the youth. And what I see in you is what I was doing when I was of your age and of your in your seat, and the challenges you're going through as students are the same challenges exactly I went through as a student, and they have not changed. What has only changed is that you're using computers and the telephone to do the things that we did through writing and sending messengers, sending cousins, and so on and so forth. But we did exactly the same things, but what has changed now is the mode of doing things. But otherwise it's the same, and resilience is a very important thing. So as I continue to consume my 5 minutes, and I'm told it's exactly 5 minutes counting from now, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished scholars, members of our diplomatic corps present, students, and honored guests, It is a great singular honor and privilege to join you this afternoon at this distinguished gathering convened under the auspices of the University of Ghana to reflect on a theme that is both intellectually profound and practically consequential: prophecies in contemporary Ghanaian politics, reflections from Kwame Gyeke. I must say here that I've not been told how much I should delve into this topic, but being so juicy, I'll devour the topic to the extent that time allows. So please don't feel constrained if I delve into your notes and what you've already prepared. So far, we have not shared the notes, so they will be mine. So, on the outset, allow me to recognize with great respect the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, whose stewardship continues to uphold Ghana's enduring reputation as a beacon of constitutional democracy on the African continent. His commitment to institutional integrity, national cohesion, and inclusive governance reflects, in many respects, the philosophical balance that we associate with Kwame Gyeke. Equally, I wish to acknowledge His Excellency William Ruto, whose leadership in advancing democratic governance, economic transformation, and continental integration underscores the importance of aligning moral vision with institutional discipline. Both the leaders in their respective contexts exemplify what one may term practical Kwameism, the deliberate effort to harmonize cultural identity, ethical consciousness, and modern statecraft. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme before us invites a careful and necessary inquiry, not whether prophecy and politics should exist, but how they ought to relate within a constitutional democracy in a manner that advances the common good. In Ghana, as across much of Africa, prophecy is not abstract. It is lived. It shapes how citizens interpret leadership, crisis, opportunity, and even national destiny. Politics, by contrast, is structured, anchored in constitutions, institutions, and the rule of law. It governs how power is acquired, exercised, and transferred. Too often, these domains are framed as competing forces, one spiritual, the other institutional. Yet such framing is incomplete. The more productive and indeed more philosophically grounded approach is to view prophecy and politics within the same analytical prism, distinct in mandate, yet capable of complementarity, provided each respects its proper boundaries. It is here that the enduring insights of Kwame Gyeke becomes particularly instructive. His philosophy of moderate communitarism does not reject tradition, nor does it subordinate reason. Rather, it seeks equilibrium. It affirms that African societies can honor their cultural and spiritual heritage while simultaneously upholding rational governance, constitutionalism, and institutional integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, to speak of complementarity is not to suggest similarity of function. On the contrary, the strength of prophecy and politics lies precisely in their difference. Prophecy speaks to the moral imagination of society. It raises questions of justice, warns against excesses, calls for ethical conduct, and provides comfort in moments of uncertainty. It operates within the realm of belief and communal values. Politics, on the other hand, operates within a formalized system. It must deliver public good, manage competing interests, allocate resources, and ensure order. It is accountable not to the interpretation, I repeat, it is not accountable not to interpretation, but to law, not to revelation, but to constitutional mandate. Where these roles are clearly understood, coexistence becomes not only possible, but beneficial. Prophecy can cultivate a morally conscious citizenry, one that demands integrity, transparency, and responsibility from its leaders. Politics, in turn, provides the legal and institutional framework within which such values are protected and operationalized. However, this balance is delicate. The moment prophecy seeks to assume the authority of the state to determine policy, to validate political actors, or to override institutional processes, it becomes beyond its proper sphere. Equally, when politics instrumentalizes prophecy, using it as a tool for legitimacy or mobilization, it seeks undermining both governance and genuine spiritual integrity. The principle that must anchor this relationship is clear. Constitutionalism and the rule of law are supreme in public domain. Ladies and gentlemen, the principle is not merely legal, but it is foundational to stability. A state cannot function on the basis of competing prophetic claims. It must rely on predictable systems, laws, institutions, and procedures that apply equally to all. At the same time, a state that ignores the moral and cultural realities of its people risks alienation. This is why the relationship must be complementary, not antagonistic. Prophecy should inform values, but not dictate governance. Politics should protect belief, but not be governed by it. When properly aligned, this relationship strengthens both society and the state. Ladies and gentlemen, at its core, the discussion is about the coexistence of moral order and legal order. Prophecy contributes to moral order, shaping consciences, values, and ethical expectations. Politics secures legal order, ensures fairness, stability, and institutional continuity. When both operate within their proper limits, they converge towards a shared objective, that is the advancement of society in a manner that is both just and stable. Institutions such as the Great University of Ghana plays a pivotal role in sustaining this balance. They provide the intellectual space for critical reflection, philosophical inquiry, and the formation of leaders who understand both the cultural realities of African societies and the institutional demands of modern governance. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on the legacy of Kwame Gyekye, we are reminded that philosophy is not detached from the public life. It is deeply embedded within it. It guides how we think, how we govern, and how we reconcile the many dimensions of our identity. Let us therefore embrace a model in which prophecy and politics coexist, each respected, each bounded, and each purposeful. Let prophecy elevate our moral consciousness. Let politics organize our collective life under supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law. In doing so, We do not weaken either domain, we strengthen both. And we reinforce the very foundation upon which our societies are built. May the legacy of Kwame Gyeke continue to guide us, to think with clarity, to act with integrity, and to govern with wisdom. I thank you for your kind attention, and once again, thank you very much, and I value the youth who are here and the young men who are coming to fill the space that we are vacating as we move on. Thank you very much, and I thank you once again. It was exactly 4 minutes and a half.
His Excellency Shema Madi, the Kenyan High Commissioner to Ghana, is to be thanked for condensing 32 pages in 4 minutes, he says. Please, a round of applause. Your presence here certainly underscores friendship, collaboration, and the advancement of knowledge between our two nations. And thank you for reminding us of what prophecy should be and what it should not be. But for exceeding your time, there's a little penalty you pay before we close. You're going to teach us to sing the African hit song, Kasongo Ye, Bonani Nagawa. But before that, ladies and gentlemen, how about a spot of music from the Jubilee Choir? Please, a round of applause as they serenade us to some music.
inaremo. No boy, oh, and so inaremo. I'm paying no, it's a inaremo. No, and so inaremo. Chitaliano, meina, meina. Muy yakobanayo, yetasya.
The Jubilee Choir, ladies and gentlemen, they are yours for the applause. Thank you very much. We shall be having a lot more from you in the course of the ceremony.
Praise him, praise him, praise him. Give him your praise and give him your thanks. For the Lord our God is great. Give him your praise and give him your thanks. For the Lord our God is. Oh, we praise him, praise and yin. Give him your praise and give him your thanks. For the Lord our God is great. Give him your praise and give him your thanks. For the Lord our God is great.
Jubilee Choir, I don't know which prophet set you up to this. You told me 2 short songs. And now, with the foundation laid for our guest speaker, it is my pleasure to introduce her, Professor Gyekye Majid of the Department of Philosophy and Classics. Please.
I observe established protocols to introduce to you the guest speaker, Dr. Nancy O. Miles. Dr. Nancy Miles is currently a senior lecturer in philosophy at the Department of Philosophy and Classics, University of Ghana, with over a decade and a half university teaching and mentoring experience. She has a background of academic training and participation in the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, and some African countries. Dr. Miles was educated at Mfansiman Girls Secondary School. She obtained her PhD from the University of Utrecht, Netherlands, after receiving both her bachelor's and MPhil degrees in philosophy at the University of Ghana. Her research interests and publications straddle social and political philosophy, ethics, African philosophy, conceptions of personhood, and environmental sustainability. She has coordinated and examined the university-wide required course, Critical Thinking and Practical Reasoning, and overseen its teaching to over 14,000 students annually at the University of Ghana and its affiliates. She performed this duty from 2021 to 2025. She has lectured on this course and its cognates at the Family Health Medical School, the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Webster University Ghana Campus, Ghana Armed Forces and Staff College, that's the junior division at O2 Barracks, Methodist University College, Entrance University of Health Sciences, among others. She has vast experience in teaching, mentoring, and developing analytic, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills in human resource, regardless of the professional focus. Dr. Miles is an awardee of various national and international grants, including an Andrew W. Mellon Foundation grant, which she won in 2018 through the College of Humanities' Rehuri projects. She also received an Africa Oxford Catalyst grant in 2024 and engaged in an Erasmus Plus teaching mobility in 2025. Dr. Miles serves on several boards, including one at the Institute of Liberty and Economic Education. She also served on committees within and outside the university, that is, in both industry and academia, and served on the Governing Council of Accra College of Education. She is patron for several associations and organizations. Dr. Miles is hardworking, innovative, an initiative taker, principled, modest, and positively ambitious. She is a wife and a mother of 4 who inspires many. Dr. Miles loves God, family, and community. Ladies and gentlemen, by way of applause, please join me in welcoming Dr. Nancy Miles.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Those are grandchildren of the Venerable Kwame Gyekye. They are all grandchildren, and a few of us are the children and sons and daughters. Madam Chair, Emerita Professor Ushiamenu, then permit me to break the protocol and call our very able Vice Chancellor, my woman king. That is how I describe her. To many of us young ladies, thank you for taking time out of a very busy schedule to host us and to give us the mother's backing with the father's spirit. Thank you, Mommy. We appreciate you so much. And then the Venerable esteemed Ambassador, thank you. May I respectfully now rely on and observe the earlier protocol given so we can move on, because the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. The spirit is speaking, and I want to take off. Thank you very much for coming. I did meet a great honor done me by the family of one that I call a father. A father not only in academia, but also a father in terms of inspiration, transformation, patience, impact. So I don't think that Kwame Gyekye is dead. I think that it is a transition. He still lives on strongly, not only in philosophy, but in Africa and the world at large. And I believe that wherever he is now, he will be happy that his daughter, Nancy, is making him proud, at least at this level. And I'm happy to have taken that bold step to do this for him. I think I speak for many in the department. Kwame Gyekye was very much interested in grooming everyone, but more importantly, had an attention, a special attention for women, because she felt that there was a certain stunted growth when it came to women in philosophy. And together with Professor Helen Lauer and the Venerable Kofi Aka, Professor, who I told Prof, I'll mention your name when I go up there. And he told me, to wait, don't mention my name there. Prof, Socrates too can go to a party. I have mentioned your name publicly. Thank you for being a living father as well as the many fathers we have there. Thank you so much for grooming us. I'm sure that as we advance, I'll have a lot to say. But this was a great man, and I know that I don't have too much time to talk plenty. Go straight to what the Spirit has revealed, and let's see what the prophet of the day will say. But I still want to say this, that the prof was a man of great foresight, that Ghana at 50, when I was just a toddler, if you like, in philosophy, Professor Kwame Gyekye, Emeritus, saw in this little lady standing in front of you a capacity that he believed he could groom. And he took me together with 3 other fine young faculty then, and we were part of those who gave the Kwame Gyekye public lecture. This is Ghana at 50. Ghana is 69 now. And he was not wrong. I remained in philosophy, academia. Ekuyanyudoho is here, Professor. Yoni Kolende. I say that because I want to express how Gyekye met us then. He's at the justice, the courts for us. And there to me is doing very well as well. I want to say that just that should give you a vision about this man whom we revere so much. And I'm glad to speak to just a bit of his reflections around this very controversial, seemingly, issue of prophecies in our political space. Grant me audience as the Spirit speaks, and bear with me. So I have an outline that I want to work with. I hope I'm able to keep it. If not, we'll do what we are able to deliver. Thank you very much, my dear husband, for making it. I've not forgotten about you. If you are married to a philosopher, an African one for that matter, the first Ghanaian philosopher trained PhD, female, I should say, you can tell that the man has gone through a lot, but he has survived it. Right, James, thank you for being who you are and managing my excesses, logic and all. Thank you very much. If you clap for him, I'll get more of him. All right. Thank you very much, my husband. So I'll give an introduction. I hope I'm able to do it crisply. Then I'll go to substantive matters that I think we know, but I hope I'm able to put some flesh to it. And then we'll go to the thrust of the matter. It is a well-established theme in African philosophy and anthropology that African societies are profoundly religious. Scholars such as John Mbiti famously asserted that Africans are notoriously religious, living in a cosmos where spiritual realities permeate all aspects of existence. We said a word of prayer before we started. We are here to have lectures, but we said one. It permeates all aspects of existence. Religion in this sense is not merely a private matter of faith, but a comprehensive worldview that informs explanations of misfortune, success, illness, fertility, power, and social order. Within such a worldview, the distinction between natural and supernatural causation is often less pronounced than it is in modern Western scientific outlook. In the first place, humans' conviction of our own limitations in a complex, not always explainable world that we did not create or choose to be generates a sense of wonder and constant search for the ultimate reality or cause beyond the natural world we seem condemned to survive in. So let's give some scenarios. Think of it. You did not choose to exist, but you find yourself existing with certain physiological needs or capacities that the stone, for instance, may not have. You eat, the stone doesn't. You have desires, the stone does not. Who or what fans the fire underneath the boiling sea? It has been boiling ever since. What pillars have held the sky in place this long? It never fell off. Human beings and trees, for instance, grow and die. But our Mount Afajato, for instance, will not die in the traditional sense of the word death. Our shoes and slippers wear off over time, but our feet do not wear off and eat into our legs, no matter the length of time we walked barefooted. The question that arises for the foregoing scenarios is, why? Why did that particular tree fall at that particular time, of that particular day, on that particular person, at that particular place? Why? Science may be able to explain how that happened, just as it does for the cycles of rain and shine, day and night, living and dying seasons, etc. But is science always able to explain why that order, pattern, regularity, uniformity, etc. pertains? Religion seems to focus on the why question, while science is chiefly preoccupied with the how question. That has been the argument. Yet, both religion and science, in Gyekye's view, originated from a sense of wonder and curiosity. Religion preceding science with questions about ultimate reality and cause, and science focusing on exploring the physical world, its mechanisms and structures. To be clear, Gyekye defines religion as the awareness of the existence of some ultimate supreme being held as the origin and sustainer of this universe, and the establishment of constant, generally worshipful ties with this being. And science he defines simply as nature study, as the intellectual enterprise concerned with investigations into natural phenomena, into the structures of the physical world. So those are the parameters, science, religion, according to Gyekye. It follows then that both religion and science seek to know and interpret reality. However, their perspectives on reality and their methods at arriving at truth about reality is what sometimes occasion conflict and contention, according to Gyekye, 2009. But can I pray for divine health while I take the malaria drug to cure the infection? I'm asking questions. Can I reduce the prices of my goods during, say, the Ramadan fast so I can attract divine favor per religious dictates, alongside ensuring that my products are of good quality, affordable, and not expired? It's a question. Can I pour libation to Nananom, the ancestors, for a bumper harvest, while irrigating conscientiously and applying manure to the farm in a timely manner? Can I do both? Can the surgeon say a word of prayer first before starting the empirical procedure? Can the student pray earnestly for exam success, even as she diligently studies the content delivered? Let me be explicit. Can the empirical dimensions coexist with the spiritual dimensions of life and living? The typical African outlook will give a resounding yes response to this question, because it does not see a detach of the empirical and the spiritual. Religion permeates every facet of life to the typical African. The pervasive religiosity of the African, however, has generated a long-standing intellectual concern. Does the religious orientation of African societies undermine scientific rationality and inhibit development? This concern is not merely academic. In post-colonial African states, development remains a pressing challenge, and science and technology are widely regarded as indispensable tools for economic growth, governance, and social transformation. In democratic contexts, particularly multi-party systems, political outcomes are also closely tied to development trajectories. Who gains power matters, and increasingly, scientific instruments such as opinion polls, statistical models, and data analytics are deployed to predict electoral outcomes and guide policy decisions. In contemporary Ghana, scientific political predictions coexist with another influential mode of forecasting: religious prophecy. Prophets and spiritual leaders regularly issue pronouncements about elections, leadership transitions, and national destiny. I heard one yesterday. I listened attentively. These prophetic claims often attract widespread public attention, and in some cases appear to contradict the predictions of empirical polling data. The coexistence raises a provocative question. Should political prophecy be understood as antithetical to scientific prediction, or do they operate within different epistemic registers that need not be in conflict? This lecture addresses the question by examining the broader philosophical issue underlying it, the relationship between science and religion as approaches to human understanding. Now, this is my posture. Rather than rehearsing the familiar narrative of conflict between science and religion, I'm very familiar with that. This paper does differently. It explores the possibility of complementarity, drawing on Kwame Gyekye's account of African thought. It argues that science and religion, while admittedly methodologically distinct, are not necessarily incompatible and can jointly illuminate different aspects of reality within the African experience. So we go to a worldview of causality from the African perspective. African traditional worldviews are typically characterized by an integrated conception of reality. This is Gyekye, 1997. The universe is understood as a unified whole, inhabited by visible and invisible beings. So we are so surrounded by a cloud of witnesses as we are seated here. Humans, animals, nature spirits, ancestors, saints, angels, supreme deity or deities, depending on which African you're looking at. Within this ontological framework, events seldom occur without cause. But causality is often conceived in personal or spiritual terms rather than purely mechanistic ones. Some examples. When illness strikes or calamity occurs, the question is not merely how it happened, but why it happened to a particular person at a particular time. This why frequently invokes spiritual agencies, ancestral displeasure, witchcraft or divine judgment, destiny or predeterminism, alongside natural explanations. Importantly, the invocation of supernatural causality does not necessarily deny natural causation. It doesn't necessarily deny it. Rather, it supplements it by placing events within a broader moral and metaphysical context. Critics have argued that such explanatory frameworks discourage critical inquiry, analytical rigor, and empirical investigation. If misfortune is traced to witchcraft or divine will or destiny, why invest in scientific explanation or technological solutions at all? This critique has been central to modernization theories that depict Africa's religious worldview as an obstacle to scientific progress. However, this interpretation risks oversimplification. We think it oversimplifies the matter. African societies have long exhibited practical rationality and technical ingenuity in agriculture, medicine, metallurgy, and governance. Empirical observation, that is science, inspired many aspects of the life of a supposed deeply religious context. Illustrations. Herbal medicines were discovered by stealthily following a goat, for example, which is in labor, to the bush to observe which herb it chews on to facilitate labor push and reduce labor pains. From this observation, the herbalist discovers through empirical study the efficacy of herbs. That is pharmacy. Grandma's charcoal and plantain stock pounded into a mix was an effective teeth cleaner well before the inception of toothpastes. You can tell contemporary societies are returning to the charcoal in the paste. Grandma was a chemist a long time ago. A drop of charcoal into the soup whilst warming it preserved it and prevented fermentation and food poisoning. You might think that was witchcraft. It was just a version of chemistry, undeveloped. Grandpa could almost accurately predict from constant observation of a regular pattern whether it will rain or not by observing which side of the hill the clouds gathered first. That was meteorology. And the list is endless. The challenge, therefore, is not the absence of empirical rationality, based on systemic observation because we are overly religious, but rather a conception of a different sense of rationality, one in which empirical observation and spiritual interpretation coexist and interdepend on each other. What Kwame Gyekye, 2007, nonetheless bemoans is that while traditional African cultures possess an empirical orientation that yields practical knowledge, an unbridled, pervasive, and undifferentiated religiosity hinders the development of a sustained and systematic scientific outlook, as well as an innovative ethos, which are necessary ingredients for accelerated scientific progress. So there will always have been a one-off kind of knowledge, and then when the herbalists say dies, then that is it. There isn't a systematic, sustained knowledge of the empirical because of that handicap, but not that there wasn't scientific knowledge or empirical dependence for knowledge. Gyekye thus advocates for a conscious effort towards evolving a culture that unambiguously distinguishes the natural from the supernatural to give impetus to the development of science and technology. Like two sides of a coin or two lenses of a pair of glasses, religion and science provide different perspectives. Put together, they give us a complete view of reality. Gyekye, 2009. To understand the tension between prophecy and polling in contemporary Ghanaian politics, one must appreciate the background of integrated causality, which was just presented. So now we look at science, development, and political prediction. In today's world, development is inseparable from science and technology. Economic planning, healthcare delivery, infrastructure development, and governance increasingly rely on data-driven decision-making. In democratic societies, electoral politics itself has become a site of scientific analysis. Opinion polls, voter modeling, and statistical forecasting aim to predict electoral outcomes with increasing precision. Ghana's political landscape reflects this global trend. Polling organizations regularly release pre-election surveys predicting vote shares, regional strongholds, and potential runoffs. These predictions are grounded in empirical data, sampling techniques, and statistical analysis, and they claim epistemic authority precisely because of their scientific methodology. Yet, political prediction in Ghana does not belong exclusively to social scientists and statisticians. We have bedmates, religious leaders drawing on prophetic insight, divine revelation, or spiritual discernment also present forecasts of electoral outcomes. These prophecies often claim a different kind of authority, one rooted not in data, but in spiritual access to transcendent knowledge. The coexistence of these two predictive practices raises a symbolic tension, science versus prophecy. That was the news item in recent weeks. Data versus divine insight, empirical evidence versus spiritual authority. Public discourse sometimes frames this tension as a zero-sum conflict. That means one must choose between trusting the polls or believing the prophet, as if it's an exclusive disjunction. Religious prophecy occupies a significant place in Ghanaian public life. Pentecostal and charismatic Christianity in particular have amplified the visibility of prophetic discourse in national politics. Prophets pronounce on elections, warn of impending calamities, or predict victory or defeat for political parties. These pronouncements can influence voter confidence, political narratives, and even post-election interpretations of legitimacy. Critics worry that such influence undermines democratic rationality. They argue that prophecy can encourage fatalism. People do nothing because the prophet has spoken. Discourage critical evaluation of policies, or legitimize power through spiritual rather than constitutional means. From this perspective, then, religious prophecy appears, it's an appearance, it's only apparent, appears antithetical to scientific rationality and democratic accountability. However, defenders of religious participation in politics argue that prophecy addresses moral and existential dimensions that scientific prediction cannot capture. While polls estimate probabilities, prophecy speaks to meaning, destiny, and divine purpose. Perhaps I should say, prophecies should speak to meaning, destiny, and divine purpose. For many citizens, especially in such a deeply religious context, political events are not merely technical outcomes, but morally charged moments within a larger cosmic narrative. The question, therefore, is not simply whether prophecy is true or false. We are unable to tell. Russell will tell you we may never know. But whether it belongs to the same epistemic category as scientific predictions in the first place. Science and religion. Now we want to do some philosophy. Conflict or complementary? The perceived conflict between science and religion has a long history in Western intellectual discourse. Science is often portrayed as empirical, experimental, and testable, while religion is seen as faith-based, revelatory, and resistant to falsification. From this viewpoint, attempt to integrate the two epistemic confusion goes the argument. In other words, from this viewpoint, attempts to integrate the two risk epistemic confusion goes the argument. Yet philosophers of science and religion have increasingly challenged the conflict thesis. Science and religion, they argue, address different questions. Science explains mechanisms, while religion interprets meaning and value. Conflict arises only when one leaves the chamber and goes to the hall. When he places the chamber, that is when trouble begins. When one leaves his or her domain into the other. Let's apply that to the Ghanaian context. This insight suggests that scientific polling and religious prophecy may not be competitors in the same epistemic race. Polls aim to estimate likely outcomes based on observable data. Prophecy, by contrast, should articulate a spiritual or moral narrative about political events. The error of some prophetic claims, the emphasis is on some prophetic claims, however, lie in the treatment of prophecy as a predictive instrument comparable to statistical modeling. This overreach is what ought to be curtailed to forestall the subjection of prophecies to empirical scrutiny, as the case seems to be in recent times. All right. Scientific polling has demonstrated increasing reliability in Ghana when conducted with methodological rigor. In the lead up to 2024 presidential elections, data collected by Afrobarometer, though not released as vote choice, forecast, showed strong indicators of public dissatisfaction with the incumbent government and a clear advantage for the opposition party then. Subsequent election results confirmed a decisive opposition victory, broadly aligning with empirical indicators. Similarly, during the January 2026 current opposition's presidential primaries, independent polling by Global Info Analytics predicted 56-57 victory for one candidate and 28% for the other. The results closely matched this projection. This empirical convergence reinforced public confidence in scientific polling as a reliable predictive tool, even though, admittedly, some other scientific polls failed woefully. So there was failure there too. The point of note here is that such polls operate within clearly defined epistemic limits. That's the difference. They predict probabilities based on observable voter dispositions at specific points in time, allowing for margins of error as part of the scientific process. The margins of error are integrated in the process of scientific inquiry. So it's not a surprise when the results go contrary to what the scientists projected. It's not a surprise. It's just you check to see, did I work with all my assumptions? Were they all correctly used? Was the data correctly gathered, etc.? And then you go back. These are hallmarks of scientific self-correction. Let's look at the other, religious prophecy and political forecasting. Alongside scientific polling in multiple election cycles, prominent prophets and spiritual leaders have publicly prophesied election outcomes, often invoking divine revelation and authority. Media documentation shows that a substantial number of these prophecies have come true. Yesterday I had one. Have come true, while others have turned false. Notably, however, this is the query. The prophecies are frequently plural, contradictory, and person-specific, with different prophets forecasting victory for opposing candidates in the same context. It is worthy of note that plurality and difference in scientific polling predictions would raise less concerns for observers. If it were a scientific poll, there is no issue, because science, properly done, does not lay claim to the certainty of expected outcomes. It doesn't say what will come out is certain. But where religious prophecy is presented as purportedly revealing the certain outcome of the same election from a common authoritative source, God, it is not only bizarre, but it's perplexing to forecast different candidates winning the same election in a nation whose constitution does not countenance or legitimize co-presidency at any material time. Consequently, such prophecies will present, it's not someone, but it will present as confused, even if unintended. Because one source, authority, privileged source, seems to be giving ulterior or different feedbacks. That's the challenge. Explanations for failed prophecies, in quote, I say failed in quote, then typically shift to spiritual misinterpretation, divine change of plans. God changed his plans, but didn't tell me to go and tell them that I've changed my plans, okay? Or spiritual sabotage, that the ultimate uncaused cause couldn't see that someone is sabotaging the divine agenda. Apology, and there is no empirical reassessment. This has intensified public debate about the epistemic status of prophecy versus statistics. We are all very religious in our own ways, but there is a question that has to be answered or responded to. The intensity of the debate has been further fueled by the very many well-documented other high-profile prophecies, sometimes even by the same prophets, seers, oracles, who confidently forecasted and fulfilled it, or it was fulfilled with precision and detail. What then is the problem? My diagnosis. The tension, as I see it, is that religious prophecies are not presented as informed probabilities based on observable, objective research. The bearers of prophetic pronouncement do not allow for margins of error when they pronounce, "Thus saith the Lord," for instance. So it is not clear which method or assumption is to be revised in the instance when the "Thus saith the Lord" claim is falsified empirically, woefully. This is unlike scientific data, which is open to and actually thrives on falsification and consequent revision. For religious prophecy, the Holy Book says, "Forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven." Hallelujah. So the word of the Lord, yeah, thank you very much. So the word of the Lord cannot and must not fail. The word will not return unto him void until it accomplishes what it was sent for to do. So there seems to be no room for failure when it comes to prophetic pronouncement declared without any room for probability. That is why it may seem that people are on the prophets for clarification, some prophets, okay? Whereas scientific data also does fail. But when it fails, it is because it is science, and science even thrives and advances when there is failure. Imagine we were trying to save someone had been declared dead, and then 1 hour later, the person comes back to life. Science, there's a revolution. We are going to interrogate what we thought clinical death or death is. That's joyful for the scientists. We don't protect theories when we are doing science. We expose them to falsifiability. That's why no one is too keen on asking, what about the other polling folks that failed in their predictions? It's science. But when prophecy is declared as a certainty, and then it fails, then we have a difficulty. What objective self-correction measure then is to be employed in the case of a failed prophecy? Do we correct the source of the prophecy? Definitely not. God is not man that he should lie. Is it the medium? Perhaps we see in part and hear in part. So the seer did not see or hear completely. Is it the rendition, how it was rendered? Perhaps what was revealed was not appropriately rendered because the oracle of God did not wait for utterance. Or it is the timing. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. Perhaps the bearer of the prophecy missed the timing for delivery of the word or for the prophecy to come true. See the many questions we can have. The critical and sticky question then is, could the bearer of the claimed prophecy be wrong? Wherein lies the distinctness of empirical prediction and religious prophecy then, if both are only probable and none is certain after all? That's the heartbeat. Should we treat all as science? Then we will demand rigorous empirical standards, and then there is peace. But if one is to be given a privileged position, then you may want to stick to the dictates of that domain, else we have a challenge. Should a claimed religious prophetic declaration then be subjected to strict empirical testing, rigorous analytical reckoning, and objective observable epistemic boundaries on the supposition that both are probable predictions? Or should the inquiring mind succumb to the silencing command pitched at the supposed unholy scrutiny by the faithless questioner? Touch not my anointed, and do my prophet no harm. Please be patient. I come in peace. I am also the anointed of God. In fact, a royal priesthood for that matter. But this question must be addressed. So touch not God's anointed, me. Now let's see this. So measured impact of prophecy on voter behavior. It is not surprising, therefore, to observe that empirical studies and expert commentary suggest that religious prophecies in Ghana rarely determine electoral outcomes directly, even though they do shape psychological and emotional orientations towards political events. Analysis of voter behavior indicate that prophecies can reinforce partisan confidence among believers, heighten emotional investment in particular candidates, and influence post-election interpretation of results. However, Afrobarometer findings consistently show that policy performance, economic conditions, and candidate integrity rank higher than prophetic declarations in determining vote choice. This suggests that while prophecy affects political atmosphere, it may not override material and institutional considerations. The Ghanaian voter, brothers and sisters in the Lord, is becoming increasingly sophisticated in determining the extent to which science will give way to faith and vice versa. A typical example is COVID-19 period. Churches, mosques, shrines continued to worship and pray during the outbreak of COVID-19, but they did so from home because they followed the COVID-19 protocols instructed by science and data and were thankful to God who gave the scientists that knowledge. Indeed, other leading Ghanaian religious figures have cautioned against conflicting prophecy with electoral destiny. We are descending. Empirically, the conflict between prophecy and polling in Ghana arises largely from a category mistake. Scientific polls aim to estimate voter behavior under existing conditions. Religious prophecies, on the other hand, should aim to interpret political events within a moral and spiritual broad narrative. Treating prophecy as a rival predictive science, as some prophets have sought to do or portray contemporary times, has invited disappointment and social tension where the predictions have failed. This self-inflicted misclassification becomes particularly dangerous when failed prophecies are used to delegitimize electoral institutions, as critics have warned in the aftermath of several elections. By contrast, polling errors are openly acknowledged and corrected within the methodological framework of social science. A few words from Kwame Gyekye to sum it up. Kwame Gyekye and the theory of complementarity. Kwame Gyekye's philosophy provides a valuable framework for mediating, if not resolving, this tension. Gyekye rejects both reductive scientism and uncritical supernaturalism. By reductive scientism, I mean a philosophical position that holds that all genuine knowledge or explanations can, in principle, be reduced to the methods and findings of the natural sciences, especially physics, which means only scientific explanations count as real or legitimate knowledge. He rejects that wholesale. By uncritical supernaturalism, on the other hand, I mean the philosophical position that explains every event spiritually and reduces all phenomena to divine action or spiritual forces, including why you belched after eating, for instance. That is also spiritual. This view insists on predetermined interpretations regardless of evidence. Gyekye 1997-2004 rejects both extremes. Instead, he proposes a complementary approach that recognizes the legitimacy of multiple modes of understanding reality. Gyekye sees African thought as characterized by a holistic metaphysic in which material and spiritual realities are interconnected. Complementarity in this context does not mean that all explanations are equally valid, no, but that different explanatory frameworks may illuminate different aspects of the same phenomenon. If you apply that to science and religion, complementarity suggests that scientific explanations of natural processes and religious interpretations of meaning, purpose, and value can coexist without tension or contradictions if both keep to their epistemic frame and avoid methodological and interpretive overreach. Science should tell us how events occur and predict what we should expect based on the regularities, uniformities, and patterns systematically observed and discovered over time, in anticipation that scientific projections could fail and do fail, because yesterday's patterns may not necessarily be repeated tomorrow. The scientists should not say, for instance, that Adjoa cannot give birth because of the nature of her fibroids. Don't say that, scientists. That sounds like a metaphysical claim and not an empirical one. Perhaps it is better to say, we do not know yet how people with such fibroid sites can become pregnant. We do not know. It's a knowledge issue, not a reality issue. Yeah. Thank you very much. And Prophet. That then becomes an epistemological inadequacy, which makes room for further search and research to see what reality will unfold through research. You search again. That is the proper domain of science as an empirical study, seeking to discover that which is already there but covered. How did it come there in the first place? The latter question, some have argued, is chiefly the domain of religion and faith. So the meteorologist may fail at his or her predictions and call it climate change. The obstetrician, gynecologist, may fail at the pregnancy term and call it a preterm baby. A recalcitrant planet may decide not to orbit the sun, and no scientist can imprison that planet for disobeying a scientific law. In some few years to come, the mode of transporting ourselves home after Gyekye Memorial Lecture 5 may be by a slap on the face to disappear from here and appear in your room on a magnetic field, or by sliding through the wall. We are all gone. Virgin births and walking on water may become empirically normal as we keep discovering what has been covered. What we think we have observed about the world may turn out to be empirically false as reality unfolds. Until then, though, we depend on what we know of the world now. That is the weakness of science, even in the face of its worthwhile, informative, and objective approach. Religion, on the other hand, should focus on interpreting what events mean for the lives of its adherents and why those meanings matter. Religion should allow those who can live by faith to believe, but not authoritatively impose a claimed certainty on all. For religious dictates and precepts may not lend themselves to empirical veracity, though they remain rational in a different sense of rationality, as argued by Majid in his assessment of the supposed antithesis between rationality and supernaturalism. Therefore, if properly conceived and understood, neither religion nor science should negate the other nor compete for relevance, even if their validity is seen by some to be qualitatively distinct. In the political sphere, this implies that empirical polling and religious prophecy properly rendered within their specific epistemic domains should not be rivals, but parallel discourses about the same reality. Polls should inform strategic planning and public expectations, while prophecy should speak to moral responsibility, accountability, and communal hope or anxiety. Treating prophecy as a substitute for scientific prediction is a category mistake. But dismissing prophecy as irrational superstition is an equally grievous blunder with dire consequences. Implications for development and democratic culture, and I think I descend shortly. Adopting a complementary framework has important practical implications. First, it affirms the importance of scientific rationality in development, planning, and political governance. Empirical data, technological innovation, and critical inquiry are indispensable for addressing Africa's developmental challenges. Second, it acknowledges the enduring role of religion in shaping values, motivations, and social cohesion. Attempts to marginalize religion in the name of modernization are likely to fail, as they ignore the lived realities of African societies. Third, complementarity encourages epistemic humility. It reminds both scientists and religious leaders of the limits of their respective domains. Scientists should resist the temptation to reduce all human experience to quantifiable variables, while religious leaders should avoid making empirical claims that exceed the scope of spiritual insight. Let me conclude, please. All right. Empirically grounded analysis supports three conclusions relevant to development. A, scientific rationality is indispensable for planning, governance, and development policy in Ghana. B, religious discourse remains socially influential, particularly in shaping values, legitimacy, and public morality. C, public education should emphasize epistemic boundaries. Let's help ourselves understand the boundaries. That is the way to go. We can't stop people from being religious or people from being scientifically oriented, but we can clarify the boundaries for each scenario we find ourselves in, helping citizens distinguish symbolic religious authority from empirical political analysis. What have I done? My prof, Kwame will always say, what have we done so far? Conclusion. I have argued that the perception that African religiosity impedes scientific development rests on a flawed understanding of both religion and science. The apparent tension between religious prophecy and scientific political prediction in contemporary Ghana exemplifies this misunderstanding. When prophecy and polling are treated as competing methods for predicting electoral outcomes, conflict seems inevitable. However, drawing on Kwame Gyeke's theory of complementarity, I sought to show that science and religion are not inherently incompatible modes of inquiry. Rather, they address different dimensions of reality and serve different human needs. Scientific prediction relies on empirical data and probabilistic reasoning. Religious prophecy articulates or should articulate meaning, purpose, and moral evaluation. Rather than asking whether prophecy should replace polling or vice versa, a more productive question is how each can be situated within its proper epistemic domain. A complementary approach respects scientific rigor while recognizing the cultural and existential significance of religious discourse. Such an approach, as I see it, is better suited to the complex, pluralistic realities of African contexts and offers a philosophically defensible path toward integrating rational critical inquiry with spiritual revelatory depth in political and developmental life. So, blow the tongues, pray your rosary, pray the tasbah, but let the doctor run the labs and take the prescribed medication for that ailment. Pray for journey mercies before takeoff, but check the tires and the brakes as well. Pray for retentive memory and focus during the exams, but study your modus ponens, critical thinkers. Read the questions well and manage your exam time. Rest your mind. Don't go for all night when you have a 7:30 a.m. exam. God will not be angry. Rest your mind and leave home early with a journey time in mind to make it early to the exam center. Watch first, then pray, says the master. To the question whether we stick to religious prophecies or empirical data, I'll respond by quoting what Jesus said to the Pharisees, re-echoed by the Venerable Kwame Gyekye, 2004. Quote, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's." Thank you for attention.
Put your hands together. And if we were in church, I would say, somebody give God praise in this house. Wow. 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 Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, a round of applause for Dr. Nancy Miles Bafo-Gyekye on that very thought-provoking lecture. To this end, allow us to give you your roses, which is in music and dance. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the performing arts. and for your organizational brilliance that has shown through these slides and this powerful lecture. The School of Performing Arts, the Ghana Dance Ensemble, I beg your pardon, give to you, Doc, the Gahu dance of the Ewe people originating from Nigeria and Benin in the early 20th century. Gahu means money drum or expensive dance. Receive the money in Jesus' name. And you to receive it. We would like to take just three questions, comments, suggestions, and even if you want to prophesy, we'll take it in good faith. So please raise your hand, identify yourself and your institution, and shoot straight to your submission. No longer than 1.5 minutes. I beg you in all the names of God. I have a mic. Okay, I have seen one here. Do I have another from here? Anyone from the top? I see another here. With respect, members of the days. Okay, so I see one here, the last one, and one there. Okay. Please, it should be a simple submission, not an MP3 one. Were you the one or it's you?
It's me.
It's you. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Ephraim Orakatete, and I'm happy to be in the classroom again. My question is quite simple, and in comparison of polling, and sorry for disturbing my lecture, I keep asking questions anytime I go to the class. So in comparing the polling versus prophecy, now it leaves me, in quotes, a politician with a choice of choosing to then agree with what the polls say or that which the prophecies do say. And in both cases, you do have to make an action. So if a prophet tells you, like in the case of the Bible, Hezekiah, that this is happening, there's an action that is supposed to be taken. And if the polls do tell me that I'm also gonna lose, I have to take an action to equally make remedy that. So in the case of the choice, Doc, which one should I choose? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Doc, with your permission, let me take two and then revert to you. Where's the other? Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm Joel Frank Williams. Please, I would like to ask, in an attempt to mitigate the chaos that some prophecies, especially in the election season, in an attempt to mitigate some of the chaoses that can come in the election season, how do we make sure that we are not implying a secular order on something that Immanuel Kant will call the nominal or something that is transcendental? Thank you.
Celebrate. The last one.
Adolfo Kojo Williams. Recently, the incident of ministers who died, the Flagstaff House set up a unit to deal with the prophecies that came, and there was a lot of, I wonder what has happened to that. Maybe you can enlighten us.
Okay. Doc, 3 questions.
Hallelujah. Okay, so please, if I may, I want to answer the last questioner first. I think that the best office to respond to that will be the office that instituted it. But as far as I know, I cannot tell if it is sustainable. Okay, and that ties in with Joel, your question on the nomina and the phenomena. Bear with us if you don't do philosophy. Just nomina just means, in Kant's terms, a world of claims that are not given to us in experience. It's not experienceable. So I could say that as I'm standing here, I see that the Son of God is raining ace on every student who made it to the talk. Amen. And those who can connect in terms of faith, they can leap by faith to believe what I'm saying, can receive it. Others might say, you sit there, don't go and do that. So because it is a nominal matter, it's not within the phenomenal world of knowledge. But if I said all the cars that are parked at the right side of this building have been locked, that is not a nominal matter, that is phenomenal. It means it's within the frame of the experienceable. We don't see it directly now, but we can go there to check through the 5 senses that we all have, objectively. So I've not been to space, but I can have phenomenal knowledge about space through those who have gone there. So the question Joel is asking is, would we not be imposing on the nomina if we think that a prophet had said something and we are not sure? Not all of them say things that haven't come true. I'm a child of prophecy, and our life itself is prophecy. But we are talking about where it didn't come true because we thought that maybe it wasn't received well or what have you. So the response is, if we share a common nomina, in other words, if we share faith, then we may be able to agree on giving a tenth of what we have. For example, when nobody is standing, I don't have any ladder that goes to God, and yet it's a tent that is supposedly God's tent. But the person is giving a tithe of what he or she has based on faith, and not that I see God and what have you. So insofar as we work within that, we will not offend anybody's nomina. That is why when we pray here, we would say in the name of what you believe in, so that the Muslim can believe in what he believes in, the Christian can, and the Nanom can also do this. And then, Ephraim, thank you for your question. I'm happy to see you. Thank you so much. You were asking polling versus prophecy. Criticals, I think that the skill we need is what our very able University of Ghana, the best university in the whole world, has instituted. Yeah. All of us, regardless of the discipline we are here for, must take some critical thinking and practical reasoning course. And not take it just to pass, but take it to be able to use it. There are certain basic critical questions you can ask yourself first before you ask the one who, for example, says, I've seen that you take a bath at so-and-so river body at 12 midnight, and you have so much money. And the person says to do that, give them 10 Ghana cedis or 100 Ghana cedis. Then why don't they go take the bath? So they have the 10 Ghana. So this is, you show that this reduces absurdity, reductio ad absurdum, and you can make a decision discerning, patient, respectful, but very, very, very assertive to save yourself from being duped. That is not to say that there cannot be a reality outside of the one that we see. And that's why you have to keep that open, because there might be something that you are being told that the empirical hasn't been able to unravel yet. So apply critical thought, and you should be able to make decisions. Thank you very much.
One more time, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Dr. Nancy Miles Bafo Jemfi. And so to this end, I see we have the chairperson's closing remarks, but Emerita Prof, the chair, would it be okay if we do the fundraiser and thereafter you conclude for us? Please, how many of us want to see this happen frequently? Show by hand. Has it been a good lecture? Should we scale it up to national? Okay, then I believe there's something little we all can do to support. Here to walk us through a fundraising for the Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye Foundation, make welcome, ladies and gentlemen, his own daughter, Dr. Mame Adjoa Gyekye Jando.
Thank you very much. Professor Chairperson, or is it Professor Chairwoman? Not Chairman. Professor Chairperson, Madam Vice Chancellor, Guest of Honor, our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Nancy Miles, who says she is our last born, the fourth girl in the family. Permit me to stand on the existing protocols already established as I extend a very good evening to you all. Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and including our intelligent students. So my task here this evening is to just throw a bit of light on the Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye Foundation, and to ask that we all make our little contribution towards the sustenance of this lecture and also the goals of the foundation. But please join me in giving another round of applause. I'm so excited and so happy. Another round of applause to Dr. Nancy Miles Gyekye. I'm so proud of you, and I really enjoyed the lecture. And I'd like to also thank our chairperson, our vice chancellor, guest of honor, the Department of Philosophy, the head of department. I know the votes of thanks will come, but once I'm here, I have to say thank you. So thank you so much. We are profusely grateful to all of you, our guests also, for coming. So a little word about the Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye Foundation. And permit me, I just lost what I had opened up. Okay. So the foundation's goals, I just want to give you a brief history. So last year, April 2025, the Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye Foundation was launched right here in this great hall at the second Kwame Gyekye Memorial Lecture by the Venerable. Today that word has been used, so I'm going to use it. The Venerable Sir Sam Eson Jonah last year was here. He graced us with his presence, and he launched the Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye Foundation. Now, the objects of the foundation are: one, to organize annual memorial lectures that highlight, engage with, and interrogate Kwame Gyekye's contribution to African philosophy, culture, and the arts, life in general, and governance issues. Secondly, to promote gender equality, counseling, and refuge for women and girls who have been battered through workshops and other programs. As you all know, Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye had 3 daughters, no son, maybe other sons outside the family, but his biological children are 3 girls, and he has always been interested in the welfare of the woman, as our guest speaker mentioned earlier. And therefore, I think it is appropriate that we promote gender equality and counseling for women. Thirdly, another goal is to promote African philosophy and African cultural values through workshops, lectures, and other programs. And then finally, but maybe not completely finally, I'm sure we'll have other things to do, to promote higher education for needy girls and boys. Higher education for needy girls and boys. In line with that, one way we have begun to do that is to donate his books. Professor Gyekye's books, in fact, have been donated recently by the family, as were his wishes, to the Department of Philosophy, where we donated almost 500 books, and to the Baum Library. I see Mr. Agre, the librarian, here. Just a few days ago, we donated almost 2,000 books from Professor Gyekye's library, as was his wish, to the University of Ghana's Baum Library. And I believe that indirectly, this will help to move that goal forward in helping, supporting needy students, girls and boys. And of course, the foundation, with your help, will also support needy girls and boys with scholarships and so on as we go ahead. So without further ado, I will call on Mr. MC, the only brother, I guess, I have. He was also a student of Daddy's. Please, this is the pledge card, and it is going around. And I must say that even as that happens, we are also sending around, has it started, some refreshment packs. Okay, so everybody should please wait whilst the fundraising goes on. The refreshment packs will also come around. Thank you so, so much, and God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mame Ajwa Jechijando. Daddy must be really proud. And ladies and gentlemen, joining us here in the flesh is a woman who has been by our father's side through the years, and even now is still with us today. Mrs. Joanna Gyekye, a round of applause for Mommy Dearest. Thank you, Mom, for joining us. And so shortly we shall bring to an end today's proceedings. As mentioned earlier, we have the pledge forms coming round. Please do indicate how much you want to commit to this worthy cause. Personally, I would do 10,000 Ghana cedis every year to support this worthy cause. It now falls to our worthy chairperson to render her remarks, her closing remarks, after which we shall take the vote of thanks and the closing prayer. Please make welcome Emerita Professor Techiwa Menu.
So good evening once again, and Madam Vice Chancellor, and I also stand on the established protocols. I think when we started, we had a wild applause of the students, and some of us were wondering what exactly was happening. We didn't know whether some people were trying to ingratiate themselves so that they could get an A. But after listening to the lecturer, I feel like our guest of honor, the High Commissioner, and the kind of envy that some of us have about the stage that many of you here are at. That is that you are students and you are getting the benefit of this wow education. And I can imagine what your classrooms must be like. So let us give another round of applause to our guest speaker for this really exciting lecture. Frankly, I didn't know what to expect when I was coming here. I saw the topic and I thought, prophecies, okay. But the way in which she did it, I felt like I had a really good dinner on Thursday at the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences when our own Vice Chancellor gave her inaugural lecture at the Academy on the topic of reclaiming voice in the global order, language, gender, and the African Academy. In fact, we have not seen such a crowd before at the Academy. But the crowd was not there just because it was the Vice Chancellor, but it was the content of what she said. And I feel like that feast has continued barely 3 days later. In fact, I think my stomach is going to hurt me because it's like when you eat too much, you know what happens to you. And I believe that our guest speaker has really done justice to the topic. I'm not going to pretend to summarize it. You all heard it. And the message that I am taking home is that she said, Obiandini lane, stay in your lane. The polling should stay in their lane. The prophecies should stay in their lane. And they should not make what she called a category mistake by thinking that, this is how, because we are saying this is how it. So she's telling us that the methods are different. One is predicting probability, but one is based on a certainty, and that is when it leads to those kinds of errors. So I think she clarified it very well. But the other thing I'm taking home this evening is that in the Akan proverb, we say that when you die, your tongue does not rot, right? So even though Professor Gyekye is not here with us, he has left some worthy children. Our guest speaker spoke a lot about mentorship, and clearly that mentorship has paid off. And it behoves on all of us to render that kind of mentorship, the clarity. So even as she was speaking, it was as if Professor Gyekye was here and listening, and the way she summed it up and concluded, demonstrated very clearly the lessons that she learned from Professor Gyekye, and also the need for mentorship that she got and what she's also given to her students. My third point is about, and the guest of honor, the Vice Chancellor, and our guest speaker, one of the unifying threads that they all spoke about was about the nature of public discourse in a democracy and the conditions under which it takes place. The need for respect, for tolerance, and what our guest speaker emphasized is the clarity. Yes, you may show respect, you may tolerate, but how clearly are you thinking? And I think that the lecture showed us an example of this clarity. And so, and it is based on critical thinking and what the university is also trying to impart to its students. And as I listened, I thought, we often hear the criticism of the university as an ivory tower. But clearly, she could not have gone lower than this to get into the prophecies. That is the stuff of social media and conversation and everything. These are the kinds of issues that animate our society and really also, sets the limits for what especially the guest of honor was saying about the need, what politics does and what prophecies do, and the fact that we do need some balance, we do need some social order, we do not want disintegration by some of the claims that come out that can also excite people. So as I sat here, I also wondered how this lecture is going to be reported in the media and other outlets, and what will be emphasized and what will not be emphasized. And it goes back to the fundraising that we are just starting. The fact that such lectures need to be staged on a wider scale so that it is available to a larger public, because it is helping us to think, and when we see the media's role, not only to inform and to entertain, but to communicate clearly. I see that there is really the need to translate some of what sounds like academic discourse into everyday language so that people can follow the conversation and understand it clearly. So I do not have much more to say except to thank the speaker once again for enlivening us, for paying true justice to the memory of Professor Gyekye, and also to the department, the family, and friends, and all of you for spending a very worthwhile afternoon that has now turned into evening. I have enjoyed myself. I cannot wait to get a copy of the published text to share with other people, and I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you very much.
Many thanks to you, our able chairperson, Emerita Professor Techiwa Menu, for steering the affairs of this lecture with such grace and aplomb. Please, one more time, a round of applause. And so, at the end of this lecture, it is announced for faculty and dignitaries to make their way to my right, which is by this car park, for their refreshments. All students, yours is right here at the forecourt of the courtyard. Let's not mix the two. Students, yours is at the forecourt of the courtyard, and all our dignitaries and faculty, yours is to my right by the car park. It now falls to Dr. Richmond Kwesi of the Department of Philosophy and Classics to render thanks on behalf of the Science Committee.
Good evening to everyone. Madam Chairperson, permit me to also stand on the existing protocols and extend our heartfelt gratitude to everyone here. In fact, the department is very honored. This is the third lecture we've organized, and I'm very glad that each time we organize it and we extend invitations to everyone, they all make it. So thank you very much, Madam VC, for hosting this lecture. Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for honoring our invitation. I know all the schedules and all of that, but you were able to make it. And thank you very much, my colleague, for a masterful delivery of this lecture. We are so grateful. And thank you, everyone, from the members of the academy to faculty to students to everyone for making it. We thank you so much, and we hope that next year is going to be bigger than this as well. And as the chair has said, we're going to probably make it more national. It will still be here at the University of Ghana, but we'll make it more national. I think we were also live streaming it on YouTube, so hopefully others internationally can also watch. Thank you all very much, and have a very good evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richmond Kwesi. And we're all here because of the nation's hope and glory, the place that bears the star of peace, that bids us all to do our best. And we say, let the great tower of learning inspire both young and old. May we proceed in unity to uphold the public cause. All rise for the anthem of the University of Ghana. Kwame, Master, you will not make it to heaven.
Proceed in truth and integrity to make our nation proud.
And to the Venerable Emeritus Professor Kwame Gyekye, a round of applause. Happy to have met, sad to part, but hope to see you again on the 4th. Till then, please pledge and we shall have the forms. For now, ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the recession. We shall have a family photo with the family of our late father and members of the days, following which we shall recess.
So the members of the faculty, those who have not yet to get their pack should come to the level side.
I thought it was here.
Just there was confusion. Somewhat. So those ones have been shared here.
Okay. So now.
Yes, those who are yet to get some can come.
All faculty and dignitaries who have not received your packs, please, you may move over to my left, not right anymore, to my left, and you'll be served. All right, bring it down. And now the recession. Once again, to all our dignitaries, yours is to my left, which is to the right of this hall. And to all students, yours is right there outside at the courtyard. Please do well to pick your refreshment.